Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Congratulations, you've lived to see another Livni upload. It has indeed been over 2 months since my last video, so moment of silence for those that might not have made it. That's kind of crazy to think about. But nevertheless, thank you all for 10,000 subscribers, going on 11,000 here soon. It means a lot, more videos are to come, but as for today's video, I'll be presenting home server solutions for every possible budget. $10, $100, $1,000. We'll be going over different hardware choices, as well as operating systems and setups that you can install and configure onto it in case you don't know what you need a home server for, or you want some fresh ideas or projects. Hopefully this video will help suit your home network or even career goals. Now, as you are aware, it's not hard for any piece of hardware to really pass as a server. Such a label is ultimately reserved for any device that can platform some kind of network service and preferably has high availability and can accept connections. However, this is not going to be one of those videos where I tell you to take your old Chromebook and host a blockchain node from under your bed. No, we'll be looking at real hardware options here today. For this first build, I'm going to assume that you already have or just planning to get a Raspberry Pi. And of course, I'm talking about Raspberry Pi Model Bs. Now, I've never actually bought Pi Model Bs, I've only bought Nano. I do own 2 Model Bs because I did an internship for a company a while back and they pretty much gave me them for free. But I highly recommend buying Raspberry Pis just in general. They're very versatile tools and they can of course be used for some basic home server, media server setups as well as many other things. The model I'd recommend is the Raspberry Pi 4 because it only comes at around $50 in price and has a quad-core ARM-V8 chip as well as 4GB of RAM, and this will certainly be sufficient for a basic home media server. You can host an FTP or an SMB. You can use it to store and access all of your personal files and media, maybe your family photos, your music. The greatest advantage of these devices is that they virtually don't take up any space or volume whatsoever. You can have this thing in your drawer, in your sock, under your pillow, wherever you want. And it's also easily scalable. You can add as much storage to it as you want, and depending on your needs, you can pick up a 256GB micro SD card for only $24.99 and add more storage for USBs or even hard drives or SSDs for adapters. Of course, I would recommend imaging Pi OS because it's the most optimized system for this hardware. The Raspberry Pi is also not strong enough for something like TrueNAS, which requires 8GB of RAM. The setup is optimal, however, for something like a music streaming service, whether on your LAN or port forwarded over WAN. I wouldn't do SMB for this like I suggested in my previous video. I've since learned about Keysfan. This streaming software requires 4GB of RAM and you can port forward it or use a reverse proxy to access it when you're out and about so you don't have to use streaming services. Be sure to watch my video on how to download all your music with SoulSeek. Now, even if you're gonna go with other builds, I still recommend actually owning a Raspberry Pi and using it as a server, though as a DNS filtering server at the very least. So what this entails is using a program called Pi-hole, which is a DNS filtering program that lets you block any ad site. It's super easy to install, you don't even have to use CLI. Well, you can. And you can set it as the DNS server for some of your devices, or network-wide if you set it as the DNS server on your router. Lastly, how are we gonna access this thing? Well, of course, we can use it headless with SSH, or alternatively, we could set up VNC. And this is where you can be creative with the casing that you choose for this Pi. Of course, you can buy the standard Pi white, red kind of casing, but I feel like that's a bit boring. And the black one that I have is like that as well. I would consider buying, if you have the budget for it. Of course, this is another additional $25–30. An LCD touchscreen panel that I showed off in my last video, which is transform this thing into a cyber deck and touchscreen tablet at the same time, which I think is very cool. Now, as I've said before, a server can be set up with pretty much any kind of old computer you have. However, it's best that we opt for server parts. And the good news about server parts is that there's so much of them in circulation that getting them refurbished, used, is so cheap. Xeon processors, the most dominant CPUs in the enterprise server market, are designed for 24/7 workload and for multiple users. And so the good news is you can purchase an X99 E5 series Xeon CPU with 12 cores for around $5 or something crazy like that on AliExpress. And you could also get it paired with a motherboard for another $20. However, you do run a big risk of the CPU or the board being dead on arrival. I've deadass ordered 2 Xeons with 2 boards at this point, and either the CPU or the board was broken in either instance. So what I did, and what I recommend for you to do, is to buy an E5 Xeon workstation. You can get one off eBay, but I actually got one for only $40 at a local reseller. They can be sold cheaper without hard drives or even PSUs, or less RAM, which doesn't matter because you'd probably want to put your own in anyways. The line of workstations I'm referring to and would like like to refer you to is actually the HP Z series. Personally, I own an HP Z440, came with an E5 1600 Xeon, which has 8 cores or 16 virtual cores, and it had 16 gigabytes of RAM, which I upgraded to 32, and I also upgraded the power supply to a new 750 watt power supply, placing the old proprietary HP one from 2013. And now with the additional RAM, you can run a host of different virtual machines and containers on one host operating system. If you're managing a home network, I strongly recommend making sure that one of those virtual machines runs Windows for Active Directory. And there is no better place to get your Windows license key than Keysfan.com, a reputable and affordable OEM resale site. Thanks to them sponsoring this video, you can score an additional 50% on Windows keys with code LIVNY50 and get Windows 11 Pro for $14.99 or Home for $14.59, just in time for Windows 11 end of life in just less than 3 weeks. Don't wait, you can even purchase enterprise server keys for just around $30 and learn Active Directory. Also, if you're like me and are just about to graduate, you may need an Office license. Luckily for us, Keysfan.com has us covered. You can get 62% off on all Office 365 Pro lifetime licenses with code LIVNY62. We'll have a virtual machine for Windows with license that you got from Keysfan.com, and you're going to manage Active Directory with a domain for all your users on your network. Now, if we have more RAM here, say around 32 gigabytes, 64, doesn't matter, even 16 might cut it, we have more room for different virtual machines that we can set up on the server. And because of that, since we have a bit more room, we don't have to actually settle for SMB or FTP for our home NAS setup. Instead, we can actually go ahead and host an entire true NAS virtual machine, which by itself requires 8 gigabytes of RAM. This is from my personal belief that true NAS is best used in a virtual machine instead of as a host operating system, especially when you have so many resources available. And now we have finally arrived to the enterprise level scale mass server farm segment of the video. Perhaps you're an aspiring Fortune 500 senior network and systems administrator, or you want to host your own Tor node, or you want to create the world's biggest mass media data farm right in your house and annoy the hell out of your wife with 10 massive server racks in the living room, all while hosting the next 2B2T Minecraft server and launching worldwide botnet attacks. This next video is going to be taken away by a torrenting professional, but top seeder for every anime and niche death metal album, a senior home systems administrator for top YouTube menace, Candy Sushi Productions.
Alright, hello everyone. I'm go by Candy Sushi Productions on YouTube, and I'm a friend of the channel. Livni asked me to record a video showcasing my server setup. This is, I believe, a Rosewell case. I have these little panels taken out because I was trying to put like CD drives in it. I'll worry about that one day. But anyway, this is the server I built. Definitely overpaid getting a rack mount case. If you don't think you're gonna want a rack setup in the future, I definitely recommend skipping out because they definitely go for a premium over normal just ATX cases, right? Best thing you can do is just use whatever you have, in my opinion. But I knew that one day I wanted a full rack setup, so I'm kind of future-proofing myself with this case here. Right, so if we take a look inside, I don't even have it screwed on because I mess with it sometimes. So this is just a random assortment of parts, pretty much. I'll try and showcase this a little bit. I got most of this stuff on eBay. I'll put I think I can send the specs to Livni and he can put them on screen now. Basically, the setup I went for, I really wanted ECC support, which is error correcting memory. And that really just safeguards you against like bit flips for your data. So if you plan to store really important data, then I think ECC is essential. But if you're just wanting to experiment and maybe host some pirated movies, I don't think it's essential. So know what you're getting into when you're building something like this. Just like this case, I paid a premium to get all these parts that work together that were ECC compatible, because you can't just put ECC memory in any motherboard or any CPU configuration. You have to plan it out beforehand. So that's some advice I can give you there. Now this cooler is low-key overkill. I kind of just got sold on it by the hot Micro Center employee. So it like barely fits in the case too, but I mean, at least this thing is like cooler than it is outside. So in terms of storage, I have 4 8 terabyte drives in here running ZFS storage. storage, 1 parity drive. Yeah, so that's totals 24 terabytes. And these are refurb drives. Refurb drives are kind of a secret to affording drives because how it works, and this is how I view it at least, right? If something is gonna fail, it's usually gonna fail early on, right? If it proved itself after that initial state, then it's probably gonna keep working for a long time. Hard drives, of course, can be so finicky, so you always have to monitor the health of them. But so far, these have proved well for me. I'll let Livni know what the website I got these from so I can put it there. You don't wanna buy just random ass Amazon seller refurb drives. That's a bad idea. There's reputable companies that actually do their research into selling you good drives. That's what I can recommend here. In terms of what I'm running on this server, it really changes a lot. I'm always messing around with stuff. But in terms of services that I always use, I've never once gone a day without running Samba on the Debian install I have on here for SMB support, to be able to access the files from anywhere. You know, I can host all the media servers I want, like the Jellyfin and Plex, but at the end of the day, it's really just eye candy, right? There's nothing that you can't do over just a bog standard Samba connection or SMB connection. So that's how I watch most of my movies and access to my files. Of course, I have a torrent client running on the server to, you know, download all my legally obtained Linux ISOs and whatever else. For the most part, I do to run my services as just standard Linux executables, standard daemons, if you will. I have Docker installed on here, and there's a lot of services that actually require Docker, just having that containerized setup where they can get very specific the dependencies they need. But for me, I enjoy the simplicity of just managing everything with systemd. That's what works for me, but obviously I can't do that for everything. So I do actually have Docker for some things. So I'm trying to think what else. Oh yeah, I'll mention Tailscale. Don't port forward anything outside my network. It's just a vulnerability and a hassle. And one, if you can save yourself from port forwarding, do it, because I mean, you're just opening yourself up to lots of insecurities. You don't know, you know, what services you're running, how secure they are. So if you can, don't port forward. How can I access my server outside of my home, right? And so you can do that a number of ways. The main way is using a VPN, right? Host your own open VPN server. And I used to do that, and it definitely worked. It was fast. I must say it got really annoying having to re-authenticate my clients and stuff like that. So basically instead of using a VPN like OpenVPN, which I used to have set up, it worked well. I'll say that it just became very annoying to re-authenticate. When I found this, it was so nice. This is called Tailscale. It uses WireGuard under the hood to basically connect you, to relay you to their servers pretty much, all encrypted and all good shit, right? And it gives all of your devices on your tailnet its own IP address. And you can access your devices with that IP address from anywhere. When I tell you this is so convenient, I use it literally every day of my life. Yeah, this is my #1 recommendation if you haven't found this yet. You don't want to port forward and you don't want to set up an OpenVPN server, which actually, even if you do want to use this, setting up an OpenVPN server wouldn't make it for a good cybersecurity exercise, I will say that. But in terms of what I use every day, it's Tailscale, it's brilliant. I'm gonna shill it just because I like it so much. So that's how I access my server from outside of my home. And I hope you enjoyed taking a look at my setup, and hopefully you gained a little bit of knowledge from it and some advice for setting up your own little home lab setup. So thanks for having me on, Livni. Back to you.
Wow, what an amazing video from Candy Sushi Productions. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to his channel down below. Link in the description. That's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully this inspired you to take action and create some projects and home servers of your own. If you want to be featured in the next home server or home setup video, please hit me up on Twitter. Link down below. And I will be sure to hype you up just as I did my friend here. Well, probably not as much. No guarantees. Thank you to everyone that has come to this channel, subscribed, stuck by, left the comments, likes. Love you. See you in the next video.
Nenori, reiktų bent vieną šuolį, nors ir netoli, o ne gulėti savo senam guolį. Padariau nenori, sako papa papuolį, tipo apilgėri kietuolį.